Samuel Hart had always been the kind of man people passed by without really noticing, a quiet figure with calm eyes and a gentle smile. Someone who moved carefully through the world as if he didn't want to trouble anything around him, and for most of his 60 years he lived this way, steady and soft-spoken, carrying his memories like folded papers tucked deep inside his chest. For the past 17 years he worked as the evening maintenance worker at a Chicago office building that rose like a glass pillar above the noisy streets. A building that roared with ambition by day, but softened into silence at night. And it was in that silence where Samuel found a kind of peace he had not felt in a long time. He preferred the world after hours, when hallways echoed softly and computer screens glowed like distant lanterns, when the sounds of hurried footsteps vanished and only the hum of the air vents remained steady and predictable, unlike the life he once knew. Years ago, Samuel had been a father who laughed easily, who lifted his son Tyler onto his shoulders at summer fairs, who read bedtime stories until both of them fell asleep on the living room couch. But life had cracked open the world he cherished when Tyler developed a rare heart condition that took over their lives with cruel suddenness, turning the warmth of their home into a place of hospital bills, medical terms, and trembling hope. After 3 years of fighting, Tyler slipped away one winter morning, and Samuel's wife, Elise, sank into a grief so heavy it became a second presence in their home, a shadow that followed her every step until 2 years later her tired heart failed as well, leaving Samuel alone in a house too quiet for its memories. He survived by shrinking into routine, by fixing broken things, by holding on to the promise he once whispered over Tyler's hospital bed dial. Keep going, even when it hurts, and every night shift became part of that promise, the steady rhythm of cleaning and repairing, helping him keep from unraveling. Then, one evening, while tightening a loose cabinet hinge on the 3rd floor, he noticed a young woman sitting alone at her desk, long after everyone else had left, her hair pulled into a messy bun, her shoulders heavy, her eyes glossy with exhaustion she tried to hide. Her name was Emily Reeves, 29 years old, newly hired, and juggling a full-time job with raising her younger sister after their mother passed. And though she always greeted Samuel politely, he could sense something fragile in her, the kind of quiet struggling he recognized from his own past. That night he overheard her whispering urgently on the phone, trying to reassure her sister that she would find a way to cover rent and school fees, even though her voice trembled with uncertainty, and something in that trembling awakened a part of Samuel's heart he thought had long since grown cold. In the weeks that followed he noticed small signs, how she skipped lunches, how her worn backpack sagged with bills. She tried to hide how she stared at her computer with a mix of determination and fear, and he began leaving tiny gestures of kindness for her, a granola bar beside her keyboard, a new set of pens to replace the dying ones, a warm note that simply said, "Keep going, you're doing better than you think." And though he never signed his name, the acts brought him a quiet warmth, reminding him of who he had been before grief hollowed him out. Emily felt the kindness, but never knew where it came from. Only that somehow it kept her steady on the days she felt she might break. And Samuel watched her silently, with a tenderness he had not felt since the days of watching Tyler study beneath a warm lamp, determined to give his son the future he deserved. One night in early winter, Samuel found Emily sitting at her desk again, eyes red, head in her hands, and though he hesitated, he asked softly if she was all right. She tried to force a smile, but her voice broke as she admitted she didn't know how she would afford her sister's college application fees, that everything felt too heavy, that she feared she was failing someone who depended on her. And Samuel felt his chest tighten, recognizing her pain as if it were his own reflection decades ago. That night he went home slower than usual, snow falling lightly around him as he walked the quiet streets, and when he entered his house, he sat at his kitchen table, staring at a wooden box he had not opened in years, the box containing Tyler's belongings, glove drawings, and an envelope filled with the savings Samuel had once put aside for his son's future money that had remained untouched, because he could never bring himself to use it, as if doing so would sever the last invisible thread tying him to his boy. But as he held the envelope, he felt something soften inside him, a whisper rising from the deepest part of him, telling him that love does not disappear, it only waits to be transformed, and maybe the future he saved for his son could become the future Emily was trying to build for her sister. The next morning, Samuel met with a lawyer to create a small anonymous scholarship fund, nothing large by the world's standards, but everything he could give structured for students like Emily's sister, covering application fees and basic tuition. And he wrote a short note to accompany it, saying only someone who believes in you wants you to keep going. Not mentioning Tyler, not mentioning Elise, not mentioning himself, just sending the love he had nowhere else to place into the hands of someone who could still rise. Weeks later, Emily rushed into work with tears streaming down her face but a smile shaking with disbelief, telling Samuel without knowing he was the giver that her sister had received a scholarship from an anonymous donor, enough to apply to every college she had dreamed of, enough to let them breathe for the first time in years. And Samuel nodded gently, swallowing the warmth swelling in his chest, telling her that she deserved good news, telling her that sometimes kindness finds us when we least expect it. But Samuel's heart, worn from years of quiet carrying, grew weaker with the winter cold, and one night, while polishing the marble floors of the lobby, he felt a tightness grip his chest, sharp and unforgiving. He leaned against a pillar, but his legs began to give way, and as he sank slowly to the floor, the world dimming around him, he thought of Tyler reaching for his hand, thought of Elisa's soft voice telling him he had done enough, thought of Emily's smile when she told him about the scholarship, and with a gentle exhale, he let himself slip into the quiet he had carried so long. When he didn't arrive for his shift the next evening, the building manager called emergency services, and the news of his passing spread through the halls with an unexpected heaviness. Even people who barely knew his name felt something ache, realizing the building had lost a softness they never paid attention to until it disappeared. A week later, the company received documents from the lawyer regarding the scholarship Samuel had created, along with the note he had written, and when Emily read it, she recognized the handwriting instantly, the same handwriting from the umbrella bar, the small, kind note sand. She pressed the letter to her chest, tears falling as she whispered, "It was you," her voice breaking with grief and gratitude woven together. Years later, the scholarship grew quietly, funded by small donations from employees who had been touched by Samuel's gentle presence, helping dozens of young people chase futures that once felt impossible. And though life in the building returned to its usual rhythm, those who worked the evening shift swore they sometimes felt a peaceful presence in the halls, a faint warmth that lingered in the quiet moments, as if Samuel still walked the building he once cared for, still offering the small kindnesses that had shaped his life. And every year, on the anniversary of his passing, someone placed a white rose on the reception desk. No note, no explanation, just a silent tribute to a man who proved that even the quietest hearts can change the world in ways no one sees, and that love, once given freely, echoes long after a life has ended.